Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So before we get into this this video today, I just wanted to mention, I've said this before, but winter is not over. Today's May 3rd, and yesterday, May 2nd, about 60 miles of I-80 in Nebraska was shut down because of heavy snow and a bunch of crashes. So from like Sydney, Nebraska over to the Wyoming border. So, you got to still keep an eye on the weather. And I also uploaded a link to a video that I found on YouTube that was shot with a drone, and it was of that tornado that went through the Wichita area, I think last week, and in particular Andover, Kansas. And Andover is basically right by where I-35 and US 400 intersect. And I've been through that town a bunch of times on 400, coming and going from like, Liberal, Kansas, or Dodge City or whatever. So, headed east or actually going out that way. And it was a really interesting video. It gave a view of tornadoes that I've never seen before. So, and it was pretty crazy because in a lot of it, you couldn't even tell there was a tornado except for seeing the damage. Because it wasn't this giant funnel cloud. It was, it wasn't picking up a lot of dust and stuff. So it was just really interesting. And of course scary because it was blasting crap into pieces. So anyway, take a look at that if you get a chance. So let's get into this TNT thing, and you're gonna want to watch this till the end because just even after this trainee got off my truck, just more stuff was revealed to me, if you will. Including like just yesterday. So anyway, I got a call from my fleet manager. Hey, there's this orphan. She's already done, I think it was like 16,000 miles with another trainer. And so here's her contact information. So I reach out to her and we come up with a plan on when she can get on the truck. Now it was several days, but it was okay because I had to go home and go to the dentist and stuff. So she gets on the truck on the 26th, so a week ago Friday. And I said, well, because she lives in the Northeast, I said, you could, she said she could meet me at Pittston. I said, well, you're welcome to park at my house too, if you want to just drive to my house. And that's probably, in retrospect, that's probably a bad idea, and I'll tell you why later. There's some obvious things, but also some not so obvious things. So anyway, it was kind of weird because even when I would text her just to ask a question or just double check on something, whenever she would text me back, she gave me an excuse for not having texted back right away, as if I was sitting there with my phone in my hand waiting for a return text. So it should have raised alarm bells that she was worried that she would have to explain herself. And then when the day she was coming down, I said to my wife, I'm not sure she's coming, because she kept complaining about just the trip driving to my house, a few hours. And she got there late in the day, but I already had a load. So, we got her stuff on the truck, and like I said, she left her car at my house. And the one thing that my wife asked was, hey, can you leave a key? Because my Sprinter had a ruptured injector line, and if you started it up, it would spray diesel fuel around the engine compartment. So my wife was going to get it basically towed over to just down the street to a guy that works on big diesels. He works on Class 8 trucks, but he also was going to work on the Sprinter. So my wife just said, hey, can I get the key to your car, because then if we need to move it when a tow truck comes, then I'll just move it out of the way and put it back. So she leaves a key with my wife. So we get on the truck, and one of the things I said to her was, hey, with your previous trainer, you had 3 critical events. And, you know, candidly, if you get a 4th one, they're going to want you to do an extra 10,000 miles. So I said, we really need to focus on you not getting those anymore. And I'm going to try to work with you on this. And, you know, when somebody comes off of somebody else's truck, I kind of want to evaluate them and see what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. Now, she had told me over the phone that she's like really good at driving, and the only thing she really is struggling with is backing, because her other trainer really don't let her back much or something. So I'm like, okay, but you know, I'm going to take a look at this. But you know, she had these criticals, and I thought, okay, well, maybe it's a training issue, and I can just coach her up, and we can avoid this stuff going forward. So I kind of drove the first shift because we had to go over to the eastern shore of Maryland and pick up a load of chicken stuff. And that load was going out to Minnesota. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm familiar with the eastern shore of Maryland and, you know, getting in and out of there. And so crossing the Bay Bridge. So I'll drive us out, you know, I'll do the first shift. So she went and got in the bunk. Well, then I drove us, I went out and got the load, was drop and hook, picked that up, I take it, and I basically avoided the PA turnpike, but when I get done, because I knew I wanted to take the 80 across, and or at least over towards Chicago, so I ran up through Pittsburgh, and I ended up at like Slippery Rock, so just south of 80 on off of 79. So then it's time for her to drive. So by this time it's like the sun's coming up, or at least getting daylight. So it's her first drive shift, so I'm gonna ride in the seat for a while, even though I've been up all night. So we start out, and I was just talking generally, and you know, letting her drive and letting her get used to it. And one of the things, you know, we had already discussed is, you know, going slow on, you know, off ramps and approaching intersections, traffic lights, stop traffic, whatever. Because she had two of the critical events were like, you know, like pulling too many G's, meaning going too fast through corners. And then the other one was a stopping issue, where she had a hard braking. So, you know, and all 3 of those, all of that is always attributed to too much speed. You know, it's possible that somebody cuts you off in traffic or whatever, but, you know, oftentimes it's just not anticipating that you need to slow down a lot earlier than you did, or being, you know, cautious coming into an intersection. So anyway, I said, okay, we're gonna get on 80 west, you know, and you know, you know, if I said get on 80 west, I don't think it's that hard to remember. I mean, some people just remember 80 west. I mean, we're going to Minnesota, so if you're in Pennsylvania, I mean, I guess you could go around the globe or go around the Great Lakes, but generally speaking, if you're in northwest Pennsylvania, the easiest way to get over towards Minnesota or Chicago is to go over 80, cross 80. So I said, get on 80 West. And mind you, we're still in PA. So right off the bat, this is the first off ramp that she has to take. She comes into it faster than I would like. And I'm like, slow down. You got it. I said, you got to slow down in these off ramps. And it's a clover leaf. And I said, you know, it's easy to like decide to speed up once you're slow enough. But you know, if you're going too fast and you can't handle the curve, you're going to be needing at least a tow truck, but maybe an ambulance. And so I'm like, you got to slow down. So we get on 80 West, we're headed, we get into Ohio, and I said, now you're going to stay on 80 West, and what's going to happen is 80 West is going to become the Ohio Turnpike. So you're going to want to stay on 80 West and go on the Ohio Turnpike. So I don't know why it is, but some people have this real issue with just reading all the signs. So, you know, she waited till the last minute to get in the exit lane, and you know, I was like, okay, because I have let my TNT students just miss an intersection, miss an exit, just to illustrate the point that they need to pay attention. And you know, I've had students who were like, well, if you would let me use my nav, I would have made that exit. And my response always is, well, I told you what exit to take. What's the difference between me and the voice on your phone? You know, if I say get on 80 West and stay on 80 West, it's like it doesn't really matter what the phone says. You still got to read a sign to know where to go. So anyway, I said, you know, get on 80 West. So we're coming up, and as you may know, in Ohio, they haven't yet transitioned to completely electronic tolling like they have in Pennsylvania. And so in Pennsylvania on the turnpike, you just drive through. If the booth is even still there, you just pass right through, and you're supposed to slow down, and they do keep track. By the way, they do keep track of your speed. You can get a speeding ticket in a toll booth. So anyway, the posted speed limit on the Ohio Turnpike, at least at this toll booth where it intersects with 76 and 80 intersect, the speed limit was 10. She's going about 23 when she gets abreast of the toll booth, except the fucking gate isn't up yet, right? Because it doesn't read your Easy Pass that quickly and get the gate up instantaneously. So I say, stop! And she slams on the brakes, and she doesn't hit the gate. And I said, you gotta slow down. You would have taken that gate out if I hadn't said something. Like, I don't know what she was looking at, because I was like, the gate isn't up. So, you know, I'm like, all right, she's been out of the truck for a little bit. Maybe it's just, you know, she's rusty. So I said, okay, look, I'm going to go lay down because I've been up since yesterday, since I got up yesterday morning. I want you to go to this exit and go to this particular truck stop to get fuel. So, you know, I think it was like, I don't know, it was probably only like 110 miles from where we got on the turnpike to where we needed to stop for fuel. But she stops there, and I get out, and there was some issue with the pump, but we got it figured out, and it wasn't her. It was the truck stop itself. So I'm like, okay, nothing else has happened that I, you know, am alarmed about. So I'm gonna go get back in the bunk. And I just said, look, you're gonna get back on 80 West. You're gonna stay on 80 West. I'll wake up when we get into the Chicago area, because then we're gonna get on the Tri-State Tollway on 294. So I get back in the bunk. I'm not asleep. I'm just like kind of vegging, reading something on my phone, and you know, I can kind of tell we're like turning and doing this and doing that, and then we're, you know, kind of like getting on the freeway, getting on the interstate, and she's, you know, moving along, and I can't really tell how fast we're going, but we're moving a little bit, and then I hear this really loud bang, And I'm like, what was that? And I don't understand what she said. So I get the curtain open. I'm like, what was that? And I was just like, pull over. So she pulls over, and my right side mirror is like basically up against the door. She hit the toll booth with my right side mirror, or hit that pole that they use to protect the toll booth with my right side mirror. And and so the glass is cracked on the mirror, and, she quickly jumps up and opens the window and pushes the mirror back into place. So I get out, right? I call dispatch, and my initial reaction was, I want her off the truck. I mean, this is her first drive shift, and she's already freaking hit a toll booth with the mirror. And I know coming in, she has all these issues with safety. And I was like, what? And I said, I told you to slow down. And she was like, I was only going 7 miles an hour, which, by the way, I don't really believe, but it's immaterial that she was doing 7 miles an hour if that's true. Because my response to that was, it doesn't matter how slow you were going. You had a job to do, and it was to get through that toll booth area without wrecking something. And you didn't do it. So I called, Saturday dispatch. I'm like, get me a repower, and I'm taking her straight back to my house. She can get in her car and go somewhere else. I don't care where. Now, she didn't know this. I didn't have this conversation in front of her. And so the dispatch was like, well, hey, can you continue, going where you're going? And I said, yeah, but we're going to need to get somebody to repower us. I said, we're probably going to end up in Illinois tonight. Now, I was out of hours. So she hadn't pulled off the road completely. So I got in and just moved the truck enough to get us completely out of the lane of travel. And then what I decided to do is I decided to PC and just get us out of the way. I said, I'm moving the truck to a safe place, which was true. So I have to cross basically one full lane to get in the lane to go west on 80. So I do that. And I don't go very far, not even a mile. And I pull over on the shoulder where it's safe. And then I'm like, okay, now you're going to drive. And I got in the right seat because now I already lost confidence and trust in her decision making. So as we go, we're driving, and we get out to Chicago. I tell her, go slow here, but I'm coaching this, and we get to the truck stop we're going to in Hampshire, Illinois, and I get out to help her back in, right? And she backed in okay, so she was happy with herself for doing that. And by that point, I was like, okay, well, maybe this'll still work, right? And again, that might have been an error. That might have been bad judgment on my part. So but my wife's like, well, everybody makes mistakes, and, maybe it'll all, work out or whatever. So, so the next day, because we had enough time on this trip, next day we get up, and I run us over to the place that we're dropping off, the 90. We drop off, we get another load, and we have to run down to Nebraska to get it. So she ends up driving a part of that, and we do the pickup, but I'm awake for a lot of this, and I'm awake when she gets to the 01. And it took us a while because we couldn't find the trailer we were supposed to hook. It really was. And it wasn't, I don't think it was anything we were doing. It just, it seems like it's a brand new plant almost. And, we drove around, and it took us a while to find the trailer we were supposed to hook. So we got that, got all the paperwork, got back on the road. So then she drove from, in Nebraska where we were to North Kansas, and didn't really have any issues. So I took over, and I drove us from North Kansas all the way to just outside of Houston. And the entire time I did not see her. It was 615 miles. The entire time she's in the sleeper berth, right? Like she didn't get out. I would stop sometimes. She didn't get out that I know of. And so I should say that, you know, that'll come into play later too. So there were a few red flags in other ways, but they seemed minor at the time. Like, for instance, I told her never leave the truck unlocked when you're away from it, and always take your key with you. Always take your key and your phone, right? 2 times in a row, she was locked out of the truck, and I either had to wake up to let her in, or she was locked out and had to go to the other side of the truck and open the door and unlock it and get in. And I was like, I told you to take your key. So it took her like 3 tries just to master that. So anyway, we get down to Houston, and she has done zip. I drove through several big cities, including Dallas, right, to get down there, and not once did she like poke her head out and see what I was doing, watch how I was driving, listen to me kind of narrate what I was doing. Nothing. And one of the things I noticed is that she was really defensive. Like if I said, oh hey, you know, this area is an area where I always see a lot of cops. They're looking for, you know, commercial vehicles that are speeding. She would reply, I'm not speeding. And, you know, and that was constant. Every single thing she said, because remember what I said about the replies to the texts. Everything was defending herself, right? Everything was, I wasn't doing anything wrong. So, you know, I said something to her. I'm like, you know, we went all the way to Houston, and she didn't want to like see anything. So the next morning we get up and we have to deliver this load, but Houston is insane. And so I wanted to drive to drop this load off. So I did, but this time I made her get in a seat, you know, and I was kind of narrating what I was doing and teaching her how to use the Jake brake and all, you know, the stuff that, and she claimed she didn't know and had never heard anything about that. So then when we leave Houston, we have to run up to, and I actually described this in a video, we run up to Bryan, Texas, and then ultimately we go up to Fort Worth. Now, one of her comments was, you know, if I'd have known about this Jake brake, I wouldn't have got those critical incidents, because I just didn't know how to slow the truck down well. So I'm like, okay. Except by this time she had said that. She said she understood how to use the Jake brake and there wouldn't be any more problems with slowing down. Except on our way to the 01 in Bryan, Texas, she comes up an off ramp. Now this was what was weird. She hit the off ramp at about 40 miles an hour, which was fine because that was like the posted ramp speed, except then like she was going really slow on the highway and got to the ramp slowly, but then she doesn't do anything about slowing down even more, because, you know, when you get to the end of the ramp you're gonna have to stop, right? So she's going up the ramp and I'm like, hey, get in the right hand left turn lane, right hand left turn lane. And I said it like 2 or 3 times, but she's going so fast, and I was like, slow down, slow down. She's going so fast that she couldn't get in the right hand left turn lane because there was already a line of cars there, and if she tried to, she'd have hit somebody. So she ends up kind of like in the left hand left turn lane, And then she has to wait for everybody to clear out so she can make the turn without taking somebody's front fender off. And again, I was like, you were going too fast. Like, she was like, came in at an okay speed, but then didn't do it. It's like she forgot how to slow the truck down once she coasted in there. So we go to this chicken place. We end up not picking up a load there, and she almost clipped a truck in the drop lot because she wasn't looking in her mirrors, and I stopped her before she could clip, a truck. And so we go to Fort Worth. And we pick up this load. She backs the empty in, drops it. It's okay, right? I said, now look, this trailer's at a door, but they don't have lights. So I'm going to go inside the line haul and make sure that we can pull that trailer out, because we knew which one we were supposed to grab. So I go in, check, get it pulled out. I don't know what she was doing, because she said she was going to go in, but I had already gone in, used the bathroom, talked to line haul, and was out of the building, and she was just walking up there, and I don't know what she was doing. So I said, okay, back under this trailer, and I got in the cab. I'm like, back under this trailer, you're going to pull out a little bit, close the doors, lock them, and then the seal's going to be at the gate. So she does that. And the plan was I was going to lay down for a little bit, and then I told her where to go, and we had time to get there, but for whatever reason, she doesn't make it. So she pulls over on the side of the road about 5 miles short of the truck stop I wanted to go to. So I'm like, okay, so fine. I take over, I go to the truck stop. When I get to the truck stop and I got the light from the pumps and everything, I'm doing my walk around pre-trip. And I notice that on the back of the trailer, there's a lock, one of my locks, on the left-hand door on the handle hasp. On the right-hand door, there's a seal on the handle hasp. But there's no lock on the right-hand door. There's no lock in the center angle irons. So it's just the left door that's locked. So I go get another lock and put it on so that both doors are locked. Now, again, I didn't instruct her on how to lock a trailer, but she closed those doors, because I checked, the doors were closed properly. But I was like, I know everything's not obvious to people, but wouldn't you think that locking the right-hand door would be, especially for somebody that already had over 16,000 miles supposedly? So I don't say anything. I drive us from Memphis, Texas, all the way to the Denver airport. She wakes up. She was in, again, did not come out the whole time. So we leave the Denver airport and we go over to TA. And, at the TA, I sent a message to my fleet manager and I outlined all the issues I thought she was having, as well as the fact that I thought she was doing a little better parking. So, but I said on Friday, which would have been Friday, this past Friday, what date was that? I can't remember. Today's oh, you know what? I think I said she came on the 24th, or the 26th, but I think it was the 20. I don't have a calendar on me, but anyway, so I was like, in 2 days, right? It's going to be Friday. She will have been on the truck a week. I want to give her, in the form of just a text message, which I will discuss with her, some written counseling and guidance, just to document this. Because keep in mind, she's already had all these safety violations, and she's already busted my mirror. And so we were already like destined to get to Salt Lake so I could get the mirror fixed and get a couple other things done. So we get a load out of, so we go over to the Denver terminal, and that's actually where I did that, those last two videos. But we get a load out of Fort Collins. And so I'm like, okay, I'll drive us up to Fort Collins because I have a little bit of time left. And so I drive us up to Fort Collins, and I check us in at Walmart at the distribution center. And we're picking up a dry load that's going to a Sam's Club in West Valley, or excuse me, South Jordan, Utah. So I said, look, I'll drive us there. I'll pull us, because we actually bobtailed up. Wait, yeah, we bobtailed up there. So I said, I'll pull us up in front of the trailer, and then you're going to take over. You're going to hook the trailer, do all the pre-trip for that, getting the trailer on your back, and because we already had the bills. And I said, we'll go and you'll drive, and you're going to drive us up to Laramie because we weren't on a really tight schedule. So I'm like, okay. So I put us in front of the trailer. And by this time, she was complaining about having allergies. And I said, why don't you take an antihistamine? And she said she was allergic to antihistamines. And I said, you're allergic to antihistamines? And her response was, and this is, I'm quoting, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, okay, I just dropped it. Later on, however, I heard her talking on the phone to somebody saying she needed to get some Allegra. I got nothing. So, and like I said, she was defensive about everything. I just didn't want to have any kind of argument. And, and just not receptive to anything that I said. So she pulls us out of the Walmart. I said, you're going to go out here, you're going to get on 25 North. And I said, we're going to go up here about 10 miles, and then we're going to get on Colorado 14 North. And we're going to go over, and that's going to meet up with 287 over in Fort Collins proper, like downtown. So I'm telling her where to go. And again, I don't, and I should say this, I told her not to listen to music while she was driving. She disobeyed me. She ignored me. A couple other things I told her about, like the climate control. Like one day I was trying to sleep, and it was hot as balls in the truck, but I'm in a t-shirt and shorts. There's pretty much nothing less I can put on, right? But she's sitting in the front in a t-shirt, but because she was cold, she just cranks up the heat, which made it really hard for me to sleep because I like it cool. And and there were a number of things where she was just rude and like presumptive about my stuff. Like, she didn't bring a charging cord on the truck. She just picked mine up and started using it. I'm like, don't you have a charging cord? She's like, no, I left it in my car. I'm like, well, make sure you get one at the next truck stop. If she just said, hey, do you mind if I use your charging cord? I'd been like, yeah, sure. And like, she moved my stuff without asking. She would sit on my bunk with like and eat. And so I was just like, I wasn't really cool with that, but I didn't want to I was like, okay, she's got to do 14,000 miles. We should be able to knock this out in like, a couple of weeks, and a little bit more than a couple of weeks, right? And again, I kept being optimistic that things would get better. So we get on the road, and again, we're on 25 North in Colorado, and I said, we're going to get on Colorado 14, I think it's north, but it might be west. So the exit's coming up, and I'm like, 14 North, and she's like, yeah, I heard you, right? But this is, again, is a clover leaf, and it's a really tight clover leaf, right? Posted yellow signs, 25 miles an hour. In fact, there's two of them. As we get under the bridge to immediately start turning right, she's doing 58 miles an hour. 58 miles an hour. I am screaming. I'm like, slow down. Slow the fuck down, right? I'm just and you know, I'm livid, right? Because this is over and over and over again. I've told her to slow down. And I'm like, what the fuck? Are you not going to do anything to get better at this until you like tip a truck over or kill someone or kill yourself? And, you know, she's just all like pissed that I'm freaking ripping her a new one. So then we're going down the street and somebody pulls out in front of her. And she doesn't slow down. She's just flying up behind this person. And I'm like, what the fuck? Slow down. Slow down. And I'm smacking the dash on the passenger side, right? For emphasis. I'm just freaked. And, you know, she was like, well, you said the cruise control would slow me down. I'm like, first of all, you're driving the fucking truck. Like, you're in charge. You're the professional. I said, the cruise control that I explained to you will do that, but it takes a little time to react. And the cruise control is not going to prevent you from plowing into somebody. And so then we're coming up on an intersection, and a lot of you probably know this intersection because you've taken this exact route to get up to 287 to head up towards Laramie. There's a railroad track that's right parallel to the street you turn on, and it's right at the intersection. I say, do not cross the railroad tracks until the light is green. And as we pull up, right, you can see a really giant white stop line that stops you before you would be within the crossing gates. So I realize she doesn't fucking see this, right? Doesn't realize what the fuck it is. And so I'm like, stop here. And I said it in that tone of voice. Stop here. And I had to say it 3 times before she finally put the brake on. And she was only moving probably maybe 15 to 20 at the most. So she could have stopped pretty easily. And I'm like, what the fuck don't you understand about stop here? She said, you said not to go on the railroad tracks. I'm like, yeah, but this is the stop line for the railroad tracks. So then, you know, we got around the corner, and again, you know, she was like, well, my anxiety is through the roof. I need to take 5 minutes. I said, well, can you find a safe place to pull over? You can pull over. I don't have a problem with that. In the meantime, we're in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but it's really, really busy. And I said, you need to slow down in here. She's like, I'm not speeding. It's 30. I said, I didn't ask you if you were speeding. I'm telling you, you're driving a heavy vehicle where there's pedestrians, parallel parked cars in a downtown area. So, you know, again, and then, you know, we get on 287. What's she do? She flies up to a traffic light, and because she hasn't like figured out whether it's the point of no return or slowed down, she does neither and just slams on the brakes. And then she's like, oh, I got another, you know, I got another critical event. And I'm like, okay, when are you going to slow down, you know? So we get out of town, and I was like, here's some spots you can pull off and take a break. No, I'm fine. I'm just going to keep driving. So I didn't really know where her head was. And, you know, we're going up the mountain. And so I was like, at this juncture, I just don't want her driving at all. So I tell her I need to go to the bathroom. And if you've ever ridden a truck with me, you know, I ask people to pull over all the time so I can go to the bathroom. I said, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. I said, pull over, you know, and I said one spot, she went by it. And finally I was like, you know, I want you to pull over up here, just stop here. So we pull over, I get out of the truck. She follows me out of the truck, out the passenger door with her phone in her hand. She's got to call somebody. So I finished what I was doing, and I had this impression, I'm like, yeah, she's not driving at all. Not for one more second. So I get in the truck, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat when she gets back in. She's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm driving. So she was pissed about that. She pouted. And by the way, this trainee is 34 years old. So I drove us until my 14-hour clock ran out, which was about 25 minutes. And I was just trying to get us. I actually, if it had been a male trainee, I'd have just stopped at a safe parking spot, you know, because I can, like, crap in the woods if I need to. But since I had a female, I really felt like I needed to get to a truck stop, so there was facilities she could use. So I drove as far as I could, and then I took myself off duty for a second. I pulled over, took myself off duty for a second, put myself back in drive, and annotated that I was going to violate my hours of service because my co-driver / trainee was having, you know, anxiety issues. But truthfully, I didn't know what issue she was having. I just know what she said. So I drove, you know, 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I got us to the truck stop, parked. I took her key away from her. And I should say, I took it, I just asked for it and she relinquished it. But then she was like, well, how am I going to get back in the truck? And I'm like, I'll be in the truck. She leaves and she's gone for like 3 hours. This is at the Flying J in Laramie. I don't know what she did, but it just seemed weird. So she comes back and gets in the top bunk and I sleep. And then I said, you know, we're going to get out of here around 5:30 the next morning. So I get up, I do my pre-trip, and I tell her that she's got to get out of the bunk and get in the front seat. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to get in my bunk. Now, remember, I've said that she's disrespectful of my property and stuff. So I'm like, no, I got to stay up. I'm driving. You can sit in the front seat. By this time, I knew that she was going to be off my truck. But I thought that I was going to have to take her all the way back to the East Coast, driving as a solo driver. So anyway, on my way out there, I stopped to get a soda, and I get some more sodas to put in the fridge. And again, she never gets out of the bunk, And I talked to my fleet manager while I'm stopped. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to pay her. I've already, like, taken her off the truck, basically. I just need you to get her back there. So anyway, I keep going. I go to the Sam's Club in South Jordan, Utah. And I go inside, and they're like, yeah, pull this empty out, put your loaded one in the same door. And I've done that at this place before. And I knew I was going to have to do that, so I kind of set up the loaded trailer in front of the doors, like where I wouldn't have to move, and I could just drop it from where I came in. So I come out, and I got a copy of my paperwork. I throw the paperwork on the seat, and I immediately start dropping the trailer. And so I go back, I open up the driver's side door, and she's got one of her duffel bags on the driver's seat, and she's leaning over the driver's seat, and she's like, get me off this truck. And I was like, well, I'm coming in this door, but there's a door behind you. So she opens the passenger door and just starts chucking her shit out onto the pavement, right? And this is at the 90. So I get in, and I'm basically waiting for her to finish. And I actually did take a video of it. I'm not going to show it to you, but I took a video of it. And I said, while she was doing this, I said, look, I'll give you a ride to the terminal or wherever you want to go. And she's like, no. So she gets her crap out, slams the door, of course, and walks away. So I pull out from under the loaded trailer. I back under the empty. I pull the empty up next to the loaded trailer. Well, by the time I pulled the empty up next to the loaded trailer, I see some police coming in, right behind. First I saw one police car, and I'm like, maybe they're coming to Sam's Club for some reason. Maybe there's a shoplifter. That was stupid. I mean, again, I don't know what I was thinking. So, because then a couple more cop cars show up. So by this time, I've gone back and hooked my loaded trailer. I'm backing it in. And the ramp goes down, so as I'm backing up, I could see a cop walking towards me. So I stop because I got to open the doors. And when I get out, he comes up. And he introduces himself. He shakes my hand. He's very polite, very nice guy. And he says, so I guess your co-driver called us? And I said, yeah. And I said a couple other things, and he's like, look, he goes, we just wanted to make contact with you. She called us and said you had a verbal altercation. And I said, yeah, yesterday. Now keep in mind, the altercation really was, I yelled at her for being a fucked up driver. But because she had to contradict everything I said, she had to have a reply and be defensive about everything I said. She was yelling at me because I yelled at her. But I'm like, I got a wife and 6 kids. And when I have somebody in the driver's seat, I mean, I was this close to just freaking jerking the trailer brakes and just completely stopping us right on the street. Because I'm like, and I even said this to her, and she got all butthurt about it. But I said, the way you drive, either you just don't give a fuck about doing it right, or you're stupid. And you don't understand what I'm trying to teach you. And then so later she was like, you called me stupid. And I'm like, you know what? When somebody jeopardizes my life, I'll call them whatever I want. Because at that point, I don't give a shit, So anyway, I talked to the cop and I explained, I said, it's a training truck. She's got some serious issues with her driving. I yelled at her. I said, but you know what? It was like yesterday. He's like, yeah. And we told her I knew this too because I went to law school, but he's like, we told her it's not against the law to be an asshole. True. That is true. You have a constitutional right to be an asshole. And so he said, you don't even have to identify yourself. And I said, you know what? I'll show you my license. And I did. He took the information down. They gave me the police report number. And, I went back to the terminal. Well, turns out that she flew back to the East Coast. Now, and I've put all of what I'm telling you guys and more into a written report that I've already given to the company. But she flies back to the East Coast. She goes to my house. Now, again, my friend Lyle was like, man, you should never let somebody go to your house like that. She goes to my house, and my wife had left the key in her own vehicle. My wife left the key in my wife's vehicle, okay? Because that's where she was given, and she just said, I'm just putting it in. This woman went in my wife's vehicle without permission to get the car key. Now, you could say, oh, well, it's her car key. But I'm going to tell you that that's actually breaking into a vehicle, okay? And I could explain the law, but I'm telling you, when you relinquish possession of something that is yours, that you still hold title to, but you relinquish possession, the possession is 9/10 of the law thing, that actually is sort of a thing. She broke into my wife's vehicle to get it. It didn't matter that my wife's vehicle was unlocked or if there was a door open. She entered my wife's vehicle without authority. Anyway, so she got her car. She's out of my hair, right? But so then I started cleaning up my truck, and I found, she was just nasty. She, remember I told you she said she had a cold, and we had that conversation about antihistamine? The whole day that I drove us from Laramie to Salt Lake, she was in the back sniffing and blowing her nose. You know what she did with those Kleenexes she blew her nose on? Not a fucking thing. She left them on the floor, in the bunk, all over the place. But that isn't the worst thing. I also found used swabs, I found those. And then I found a cup of her piss on the top of the cupboard on the right side of the truck. And now, fortunately, it was in one of those containers that you get fruit in from the truck stops, which is why, that now explains why, couple things. Why, one, she never came out of the bunk. She was just peeing in these things. She was pissing. And by the way, this is a female, so you can let your imagination go, but she was peeing in these cups instead of getting out when I stopped or even asking me to stop so she could go to the pee in the bathroom. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I couldn't understand why she bought apples and bananas, but then always wanted to go, was always coming back with these fruit cups from the truck stops when she did go in. It was so she had a thing to piss in my truck. So, the company is going to do an evaluation of her. That's what I'm told. I don't know. I don't really care, but they're going to do an evaluation. I have already gotten set up, and I've already met with somebody to be my next TNT student, because I still remain optimistic about people in general. And I feel like most of the people that are doing this thing, that they really do want to do well, and they want to learn. And they're not bringing so much messed up personal baggage that they can't even function correctly on a truck and in a commercial vehicle. I'm sure that somebody's going to give her a job. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm sure that somebody's going to give her a job. And she's going to continue thinking she's a great driver, and she's going to continue being wrong about that. But, I'm just hoping I'm not around when she ultimately finds out she's not a good driver. But anyway, that's my experience with this student that I had to kick off. And maybe, the next time, if they say, yeah, they already have 3 critical events, I'll be like, yeah, well, I'm not going to find out if they're trainable. Because really, I told my fleet manager, I go, I don't feel like she's trainable. Like, she was so not receptive to what I was trying to teach her. And in fact, at one point, she's like, well, why don't you just drive and I'll just drive? Like, she didn't care about getting better at her craft. She only cared about finishing her 30,000 miles or whatever it was going to be so she could get her own truck. She wants to be a company driver, she said. I don't know what she's going to be. But anyway, thanks if you listened this far, thanks. It was kind of a nightmare. I finally got some sleep. I was so exhausted from those 6 days. I mean, I couldn't believe how tired I was, but it was just draining, just being up all the time and being worried all the time that I was up and in the bunk. And I gotta say, it's no way to live. So I'm glad it's over. I'm glad she got her car out of my driveway and I don't have to deal with her anymore. It really, I've enjoyed all the other trainees I've had. I'm pretty sure that I will enjoy this next trainee that I'm going to have, and then the subsequent one, I already got 2 people lined up for TNT. But man, that was crazy. And I don't think I got the truth about her previous trainer. I think I got what she wanted to tell me, and like I said, I had every reason to question her veracity. So, anyway, if you want to be on a truck at this company, but you think you're gonna just disobey what the trainer says, and there's not going to be any repercussions, I think you need to find a different company to go to. And to my fellow trainers, several drivers I talked to were like, oh, I'd have kicked her off after she broke the mirror or whatever, and I guess that's what I get for trying, because I actually have a lot of confidence in my ability to train people. I train thousands of people in the military. I train people in my law firm. I've trained other drivers here. But man, I was just out of, I didn't see this coming. So it was, it's a big lesson. It's a big lesson. it was kind of crazy. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me. I appreciate everybody's support, everybody's comments. And a few people have asked me about other stuff. I'm going to do videos about answering those questions too. So take care. We'll catch you next time on Tim Travels. Bye.